part 2 of me talking about pornography use in society. So, I want to talk about the background of how I think society got here, but I think that's a whole nother separate video that I'm probably going to upload later on. But, to stick with this subject, which is a core issue in society, basically, the use of porn can degrade the way you see the opposite gender, and then basically the only value that men leave to offer to society from themselves is essentially, instead of it being those things of like protecting, providing, pursuing, yearning, being romantic, all that stuff. Someone porn addicted listening to this will be like, oh, yeah, that's why you live the life the way you do, and part of the reason you probably don't see an issue with it. But yeah, instead of a man doing all these things like being romantic, pursuing, courting, holding doors open, all this sort of stuff, right, that a man would have to do in order to earn the attention from a woman, that instead has no dopamine rush. Doing those things, going out in the world and doing those things, does not provide any form of fulfillment for that man anymore, because he's getting so much dopamine, he's getting so rewarded for doing absolutely nothing. And he's getting rewarded with people that are unnaturally alluring or in line with whatever childhood issue they have, or pattern they have developed, right? And so then all that leaves women to get the attention of men is to behave in the way that there is a demand for. Then you have the cost of living thrown in there, and so a lot of women will become objects and get money thrown at them, literally, or start OnlyFans or whatever else. Discovered that there's like a niche for something called a subby hubby. I don't really know what all that's about, but I'm essentially, it's like subscribing, and so instead of a man investing in a woman that's in his social circle, in his real life, he can do it safely from behind a screen, and he gets rewarded for like sending $5 over the internet. Which isn't how it would work in real life. If you were to go and give a woman $5 on the street, she's not gonna get naked for you and do whatever unhinged crap you're into, right? It's not gonna happen. You're gonna actually have to be a decent person. You're gonna have to actually love her. You're gonna have to actually care for her. You're gonna have to actually put a roof over her head. You're going to have to be a nice person. You're going to have to be likable as a human being. You're going to have to be willing to put your life in danger for her. And I can already hear some porn-addicted man, yeah, we're just sleeping to the table, but what about women? There's all these standards for us. I feel attacked because you're describing my life perfectly. Sorry to you. But, yeah, you're a victim in this too. So, I don't know, maybe don't defend industries that exploit either gender, because it's predatory on both sides. So yeah, and what I mean by that is it's destroying you as a man, because you don't have motivation to have real healthy relationships. You don't have motivation to go and improve your life. You don't have motivation to be a better person, to grow. And for the women, you're seen as merely a object, and I'm sorry, but the sexual attention of men is the lowest form of currency. And yeah, like if you're a man, you're consuming this all the time. You're basically just saying, "Here's my money. Tell me I'm a good boy for doing nothing." And for those that say, "Oh yes, but the access to these things, it lowers this and it lowers that," well, no, actually. The more you watch porn, the more you need more extreme stuff. Generally. Not saying that applies to everyone, but generally, that is how it works. And instead of being able to see another human being as someone valuable and someone to nourish and someone to love, and someone to enjoy sex with, it's not about that. It becomes you're doing sex to them. And unfortunately, if you try and have a relationship with a porn addiction, that is how you will treat having sex with your partner. It will be a very separate, avoidant activity. Because porn is essentially training you to view another person as a sex object. You're not actually having to have any sort of connection with that person like you would in real life. And that, I believe, feeds a cycle of entitlement. And a lot of things that should be taboo are considered just normalized, because it's everywhere. And then how your brain's going to be working is, instead of seeing things normally through a healthy lens, everything's going to be sexualized. You're not going to see normal things how you should. You're not going to feel them how you should. But yeah, like I said, men are victims in this as well, because they're often exposed very, very early. And then they end up living quite unfulfilled lives with this habit that they'll defend to the death, even though it is destroying any chance of real life connection for them. But yeah, essentially it is just like a drug. And now if we're going to talk about the effects on women, and this is a direct connection to just, people trying to live and eat and all this stuff, but no woman as a little girl is going, "Wow, I cannot wait to grow up and be a stripper. I can't wait to grow up and be a porn star." A lot of this crap that you're watching, you wouldn't like to see that if it was someone that you actually were able to develop a relationship with. You wouldn't like to see them being treated like that if you were actually not a brain-fried person. You wouldn't like to see someone you care about in over half the situations that you watch online. And all this stuff you're paying for is not respectful towards women. And it's actually teaching you to be bad in bed, because, and this is probably the worst generation sexually, because everything is male focused, right? Because it is intended for you at home jerking off alone, right? So it is not teaching you about connection. It is not teaching you about pleasuring a woman. It is not teaching you about foreplay. It is not teaching you about any of that stuff. In fact, it is teaching you the opposite. It is teaching you that that is not important, and that in this sexual act, which takes two people, only you and your feelings are what's important. And you might go, "Oh, yeah, no." It is all penis focused. Porn is very male centric. And you're not going to respect the women that are doing this at all. You're probably going to deep down hate yourself for doing it long term and wasting your life and your money and feeling unfulfilled. But at the same time, that's your habit, so you're going to protect it like a drug. Now, women in porn are actually in pain a lot. But they get paid. You know, a lot of the time, like, I'm not saying that every single porn star is in pain, right? But they're not having all the stuff that would make a woman feel good, which is, for the most part, emotional connection and emotional intimacy, because men and women bond differently, right? And for women, oxytocin is huge. Emotional connection, foreplay, making her body feel good is not a priority in pornography. In fact, quite the opposite. The fact that there are categories out there about choking women, slapping them, and basically torturing them, and men have trained themselves to get off on that, and then we're wondering why there's a correlation with male violence. I mean, you know. And that's the thing, you'll be seeing like this stuff on the internet, and the woman will be going like, ah. Yeah, she's probably in pain. All that stuff where you're like, oh yeah, he's doing. No, it's fucked up. And if you were able to unfry your brain and genuinely care about someone, you might see how fucked up it is. You know? Anyway, that's my thoughts.